focused on driving down wages, and I look forward to voting against this bill.
I call the honourable member Chris Ockenville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, the honourable member.
I'd like to inquire, may I, Mr. Speaker, seek to divide my 5 minutes with the Minister of Trade, the purpose being we've been called upon to answer the question from New Zealand First.
The member's perfectly entitled to split his call for 2.5 minutes each if he wants to.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
It's a split call, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll invite
the member will receive the bell with half a minute to go.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I took it that this member was going to speak first.
Well, I'll speak first if you wish.
Yeah, because you're already on your feet, so I've called you.
Thank you.
So
Thank
the
you,
member will commence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Section 97 created an imbalance for workers in an industrial dispute and took away the freedom of workers to choose. And that, Mr. Speaker, is in fact what we're talking about. I guess the noise from the other side of the House, especially in the initial speeches, is something we should get used to over the next year, Mr. Speaker, as the union influence in running the Labour Party political wing bites in, cuts deep and demands paybacks. I was shocked to hear this being described as a scab bill. Is the level of industrial relationship still at that level? And yet, what, for goodness sake, has this come to? Andrew Little speaks of workers being locked out and starved to death. Andrew Little, I was stunned to hear, give such a diatribe of basic resentment, dislike and prejudice. I concur with my friend David Bennett, chair of the Transport and Industrial Relations Select Committee, that Andrew Little is a man who is educated, eloquent and cultured. He's a very pleasant man to work with at the committee. So who was he speaking to this evening? That is the question we have to ask ourselves, and I think we know he was speaking to his union audience, and this is, as I said earlier, more of what we have to get used to, Mr. Speaker. So where is the freedom of choice in anything he said? Where is the recognition of the very good level of industrial relationships which the workers and employers have been justifiably proud of over the last decade or so in New Zealand? And I speak as someone who used to export pretty much right through the 70s and 80s and 90s, and I can remember when industrial relationships really did present problems. The only good thing was that, thank you, Mr. Speaker, the only good thing, Mr. Speaker, was that Australia was slightly worse off than we were. I waited with bated breath for Darian Fenton to give her speech, and I think Darian gave an appropriately mild and short speech, falling short of actually supporting the bill, I'll admit that, but she didn't have much to say that was critical about it. Mr. Speaker, I commend this bill to the House.
Mr. Speaker.
I call the honourable Minister
Mr. Speaker.
Tim Grosser.
Mr. Speaker, I simply